It is my intention with this discourse to put forward an analytical and comparative review of what has come to be known as the Digimon Tamer community and its relation to other existing mystical, esoteric, and shamanic systems by reviewing the Tamers' practices, mythos, spirit relationships, and worldview alongside existing traditions. It becomes clear through this process that this organic development of spirit interaction can be recognized as an indirect continuation of earlier shamanic practices, as can be found in medieval grimoires, modern Western magic, and as is persistent throughout Afro-Caribbean religions. The Tamers maintain relationships with disembodied intelligences. The central entities a Tamer works with are divided into two classes, partner Digimon and warriors. Partner Digimon could be likened to the familiars of the medieval witch, and act as both companions and assistants. The warriors, however, are completely unique in that they are absent from the canon's fiction story, and are supremely more powerful than ordinary partner Digimon. Warriors are a facet of this community that has evolved organically over roughly the last 15 years, completely outside of the influence of the fiction. While the canon did make use of something called legendary warriors, these are not synonymous with the warriors of the Tamers. Warriors are entities said to be created by the lesser deities of the digital world, known as the Sovereign, to battle the forces that threaten our world and the world of the Digimon. Each Tamer is said to be under the patronage of one of the five Sovereign, Baihumon, Juchaomon, Ibonwumon, Azulongmon, and Fanglongmon. They are directly derived from spirits of Japanese myth, said to act as guardians of the Japanese city Kyoto. Each is said to rule over a direction and have three subordinates who carry the title Deva. While directly influenced by Eastern mythology, the Sovereign, with their hierarchy and directional rulings, echo somewhat of the ideas shared by the grimoires. While this is a subtle similarity, content from the grimoires does make a blatant appearance in the canon. The Demon Lords are a grouping of 7 mega-level Digimon, each of which is assigned a sigil of one of the Olympic spirits in the Arbitel. The Demon Lords derive their name and designs from the Lemmigeddon, and as demons are directly opposed by a trio of angelic Digimon, whose names and designs are inspired by angelic choirs and archangels respectively. While there are many other powerful beings in the digital world, it is most often the Sovereign that have the highest frequency of interaction with the Tamers. It is the Sovereign who typically bestows the Digivice, a spiritual object which is used for a multitude of functions, but primarily to project the spiritual energy of the Tamer to the Digimon, and allow it to achieve larger spiritual bodies and access to greater powers through a process simply termed evolution. Acting as a projective tool, the Digivice falls into the wand class of modern magical weapons, as put forward by Peter J. Carroll in Psychonaut. The wand and cup weapons are used to transmit the power of the life force, or Kia, directly on the etheric. Its other functions vary depending on the model or the style of the device, but can include maps, data records, communication functions, card reading functions for use with trading cards which act much the same as paper talismans, maintaining and cleansing of one's spiritual body, as a weapon of light, etc. While for the most part the Digivice is a projective tool, it is also the item over which partner bonds are sometimes formed. Warrior bonds are unique in that once a warrior has been bestowed by the Sovereign, that warrior lives in the head of the host who gains telepathic communication with the spirit. The two over time begin to join in a kind of union, and the ego of the host is broken down until on death they become purely part of the warrior and are freed from the cycle of reincarnation and live on as the warrior to continue guiding, guarding, and battling alongside humanity. Originally, warriors were humans or other minor spirit entities who have been made anew by the gods and are given to hosts whose auric fields match in color. This connection to a warrior is soul deep and cannot be undone once the bond has been entered into willingly. Bonding is a general term used to mean creating formal relationships and energetic connections with either Digimon or warriors. A Tamer can bond to a number of different Digimon. However, because the partner Digimon utilize the spiritual energy of the Tamer to maintain higher levels of evolution, it is impractical for the Tamer to maintain more bonds than is necessary at any one time, as this is said to lead to fatigue and sometimes damage to the Tamer's soul. Bonding with Digimon is not a permanent agreement, and both parties can decide at any time to part ways, should they wish to. This relationship of teaming up with the good spirits and being enlisted to fight the forces of darkness is a theme that persists in myth and practice throughout time. Notable, of course, are the Solomonic magicians who summon and conquer demons with the aid of angels, but also the Italian Banindanti. In his book, Night Battles, Carlo Ginzburg looks at historical records of the Banindanti and examines the continuation of a living shamanic tradition. At night, I go invisibly in spirit, and the body remains behind. We go forth in the service of Christ and the witches of the devil. We fight each other, we with bundles of fennel, and they with sorghum sticks. This quote of one Battista Mojico describes the process of what we would now call astral projection to combat the forces that threaten him and the prosperity of his village. Throughout the text it is described how the Banindanti would fight for the good harvest of their villages against the diabolical witches who sought to ruin the crops. While the Digimon community is not a fertility cult, they do use spirit flight to battle supernatural forces they claim threaten to harm our world. Spirit flight is not the only power that Tamers claim to have access to. Relationships with Digimon and warriors can lead the Tamer to display other supernatural abilities, such as healing, precognition, or excite, and so on. It is unclear, though, whether it is the spirits that lend these powers, or if through spiritual endeavors these latent talents are drawn to the forefront. Interestingly, the Digimon's ability do not focus so much on the mundane as the spiritual. The digital world, though, is inhabited by many entities other than Digimon, and may even be synonymous with the general chthonic realm, though typically it is viewed as a distinct location in the astral plane. One such type of entities inhabiting the digital world are the Diginomes, a race of creatures with the powers to grant wishes. Through interaction with these minor spirits, the Tamer community also has a means of influencing the world around them through a simple and unique approach to theurgical sorcery. Digimon are not enlisted to find love or make money. This may be because, for most Tamers, this path is viewed as a kind of destined calling, and utmost respect is given to the bonded spirits as working partners, friends, and sometimes lovers, rather than subordinates. This respect and the intimate closeness between the Tamer and partner Digimon ultimately culminate in the process of biomerge. The union of the Digimon partner and the Tamer during spirit flight or astral projection is referred to as biomerge. Through this process, the Tamer's body of light or astral body becomes one with the spiritual body of the Digimon to form an entirely new being which is more than the sum of its parts. Biomerge allows for access to higher powers than could normally be achieved by Digimon or Tamer alone. Union with the warrior, known as transfusion, is dependent on at least one Digimon partner to act as a conduit through which to form the new spirit body. Warrior hosts for this reason will often bond to a number of different partners of different elemental and familial traits to achieve mode changes, wherein a different and more specific epithet of the warrior can be accessed through merging with one or more partners. This shedding of the ego to become merged with spiritual beings could be likened to the samadhi or the holy union of Eastern yoga. Utilizing various yogic practices like asana, pranayama, and other modern meditative techniques such as chakra path working and auric vision, the Tamers have improvised a toolkit for achieving altered states of consciousness. The community's main focus remains more so on the techniques themselves and how to make them work than on the religious or cultural background of the tech. While primarily the Digimon Tamer community focuses on interaction with external entities, there is also an aspect of self-actualization that exists within their worldview. Tamers believe each person has within their auric field 3 crests, which are seals or symbols which denote positive characteristics of the Tamer. Typically the first 2 will be present in the outer layers of the aura and can be divined by a Tamer with auric sight. The third is deeper in the energy layers and is discovered by the individual. It is through activating the crest that a Tamer is able to achieve higher states of evolution and eventually biomerge and transfusion. However, this cannot be done without first diving into the depths of the psyche. A crest can function either passively or actively, depending on the individual. Tamers can activate their crest either by actively embodying the quality of the crest or by promoting that quality in another person. For example, a tamer with an active courage crest would activate their crest by embodying courage and performing a courageous act, whereas a passive courage crest would be activated by inspiring courage in a companion. It is attempting to find the trigger for activation and then sensing activation once it's been achieved that makes this essentially the first initiation of a tamer into this mystical system. While the Digimon Tamer communities does not have a formal initiation or formal group structure, divining the crest, which gives some indication of the nature of the person's true character, is seen as one of 3 milestones. Somewhat Platonic in nature, the discovery of the crest calls to the Greek aphorism, "Know theseidon, know thyself." Once accomplished, the second initiation, of course, is forming bonds with the partner Digimon, and the third being bonding and transfusion with the warrior. This end stage of union with the tutelary spirit echoes of the marriage with the head spirit that takes place in the initiations of traditional African religion. Marta Moreno Vega, who penned Altar of My Soul, describes the process. With the final ceremony comes asiento, during which the Orisha, who claims the novice as his or her own, is ceremonially crowned. The Orisha is mounted on the head of the novice, along with the ashe of the Orisha. The relationship that Digimon Tamers are forming with the spirits is a unique example of neo-shamanic practice growing organically in the West and continuing on these age-old traditions of shamanic practice. The Digimon Tamer community, through piecing together Western and Eastern spiritual practices, have formed a cohesive community and embody a modern incarnation of the shamanic tradition. Though holding unique worldviews, they continue the ancient practice of building relationships with the spirit world and the powers that lie there to fight the forces of evil. They aim for spiritual enlightenment and holy union through activation of crests and union with the head spirit or warrior. With this knowledge, it is clear that the Digimon Tamer community can effectively be classed as a pop culture-based form of neo-shamanism.